Jake, you ready? I'd like to welcome everybody out to our commission meeting on this August 3rd, 2016. If you'll all please arise and repeat the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to welcome you all out tonight. Apparently there's some exciting things happening on the agenda. There's usually not too many people that show up to these meetings, but apparently somebody's here to support something.
I think our sheriff's famous.
We'll start out with approval of minutes. Commissioners, we have one set of minutes. This is from a meeting on May 18th, 2016.
Commissioner Hopes, I have one correction on page 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 paragraphs down, just a short one. It says a short video was shown about Melody. I'm wondering if that's Melody.
It was pronounced Melody.
That was the only, yeah, that was my only question on that, so.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure on that one either.
With that, I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Item number 2, County Employee of the Month, Rose.
You're right, Commissioners, it is a special event tonight. And I know, he said he's gonna run away, but I don't know him. You know, we could get him a song some way. Frank nominated the sheriff, and I have to concur that this was an amazing nomination. He's going to explain what his nomination and why he specifically nominated him. But I would just like to take a minute to thank the sheriff. Yeah, Thanks. It has been such a pleasure to get to know Jeff better and work with him the last couple of years. He does amazing things not only within our county, but within the whole community. You know, he is there for everything all the time. And I personally can't thank him enough. He's made my life a lot easier.
You make my life.
So it's an honor that he is our Employee of the Month in so many aspects of his job. So I personally would like to thank him, but I'm going to turn the time over to Frank because this is also something dear to my heart as to why he's being honored today.
Well, we had the Mike Ballard fundraiser was the biggest reason that we nominated the sheriff, because we were out trying to raise money for a good cause, which we grossed $24,500 and some odd dollars, and we'll net over $18,000 at the next commission meeting that we'll give to the Ronald McDonald House. But the sheriff went door to door and on foot and ran around. He raised like $3,000 all by himself within a couple of days, just doing things that that normally you don't see a sheriff do. And it was greatly appreciated. He sponsored a hole, he sponsored a team. The things that he does are above and beyond the call of duty for a sheriff. He's coached a girls softball team for the last 2 years, volunteers countless hours. He actually requested that the sheriff's department get a key to the ball field so that when dispatch calls me at 2 in the morning, I can just tell him, hey, send one of the deputies out. So there's a key hanging in there now. He's a big asset to the community and certainly to Carbon County. And I'm very proud to call him the sheriff, but more proud to call him my friend. Yeah. So he's a good guy. And so we nominate him for Employee of the Month. It's the least we could do. it's your acceptance speech time now.
I'd like to thank everyone. Well, first off, I'd like to say I'm not in the habit of putting lives in danger, but I did golf in the Ballard Golf Tournament. And those that saw it there was not an impressive display. Yeah, it was dangerous, but we got through it. Nobody got hurt. But no, I just want to say thank you. I'm honored to be the sheriff. I feel like I'm blessed to be in this position and really grateful to be part of the family that is the county. I love working here with all these guys, and I can walk into Rose's office and she can tell immediately if I'm having a good day or a bad day. More bad than good when I usually go in there, but she's such a strong support for all of us, as everyone here is. I just love the environment that we've created, and I think that the county's a great place to work, and just want to say thanks to everyone and appreciate it.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you.
He also encourages the deputies, the other deputies, to get involved in stuff. We've had a number of deputies coach football and basketball and softball and stuff. So, not only is he doing it himself, but he's making the example and having the other guys do it too. So it's great. Thanks, buddy.
Well, I think it goes without saying that Sheriff Wood is really making a difference here in the community and a positive influence on others.
Commissioners, we have one other presentation that wasn't, I apologize, it wasn't on the agenda, but we're going to just divert a little bit. I've checked with Christian, we could do it.
It's actually part and parcel of this same thing,
It
really.
is, so it's a continuation, so I'm going to turn the time over to Doreen. Thanks.
If I can do this, bear with me. Jeff, you've helped my department a bunch, so I need you back up here. Stop shaking.
Is Bacon in trouble again?
We want to honor Bacon and make him an honorary patrol officer.
Here he is. Holy cow.
Officer Bacon, and it's air conditioned. That's
hilarious. That's hilarious. Well, he's probably the first dog to be in the commission chambers.
What does the shirt say? What does the shirt say?
I'm going to be a cop just like my daddy.
It's got a little sheriff's badge on him.
So I live close enough to the shelter that Bacon likes to visit. The folks over there quite often. Yeah, he's a celebrity.
He's a parade dog too.
Yeah, he's a parade dog.
He's our favorite.
Oh, good deal.
We can open the door now and say, Bacon, come on up, let's go.
Well, he's got his own card. He can get right in.
And his own badge, so he's sad.
Thank you. Thanks again. Makes it.
I found out a little too late that the sheriff was in the dunk tank, or I could have went and visited there at International Days too.
Hey, you need to memo those things, Frank.
Well, I think we're down to a little more of our normal size now for a commission meeting. We'll move on. Item number 3, consideration and possible approval of a contract with Hot Air Enterprises LC for hot air balloon rides during Carbon County Fair. Frank.
So we just, pending approval, we'd like to offer some hot air balloon rides on Saturday at the fair. The fee's $3,200 for the 4 hours, and we're going to recoup some of the fees by charging a fee to the participants, $15 for adults and $7 for kids. And we just felt like it was a way to bring something new to the fair. We're changing things quite drastically this year. In addition to hot air balloon rides, if approved, we're giving away a Disneyland vacation for 4 with a minute to win it competition. We've moved. It's serious. We have a 5-day park hopper pass, hotel accommodations. Pierce Oil donated a $500 gift gas card. The community's really gotten behind this and sponsored it. They have over 18 sponsors that have jumped in and really gotten behind this. So we're excited for that. The Demolition Derby, we've moved it from June to be in conjunction with the Carbon County Fair. Compared to last year, we had 5 cars last year. We have 41 registered right now. And primarily, that was something that the sheriff and I discussed way back in January, that it was something we wanted to do. And we feel like that's going to be a huge addition. We'll change things with the Kids Day and move the time up. And so this is just the beginning. We want to make the fair a destination and really keep improving on it every year. And so hot air balloon rides is the start, and I have a PO if you approve it.
Frank, there was only one thing in there that I saw, that the sponsor will provide 5 ground crew members. Are you?
We are providing ground crew members. We have some volunteers, and we have a couple of staff members to help with that.
Okay, and they're going to do a minimum of 4 hours?
Minimum of 4 hours.
Okay. Pending weather and all those other
Yeah,
things that
and
we listed,
we're going to do it. It'll be located at the grass in front of the senior center, just on the kind of the west side of that, away from power lines and everything like that. And they'll be tethered. So the balloon will be tied to county 4 vehicles. Yeah, we're going to use our vans and just tie them up. So should be fun.
So if we see vans floating across.
If you see the vans float, yeah, call the sheriff.
Too much hot air.
We might have to limit the sheriff to his own ride.
Yeah, he has to go by himself.
Frank, I think this is a great addition to the fair and everything else that you guys are doing.
Thanks.
Question, though, in regards to, I was just wanting some clarification on who would not be eligible to ride in it, as far as health conditions, pregnant, stuff like that.
You know, I would have to check with the promoter, and we would make sure that we would have those in place, that we would have those understandings prior to registration. I will have 2 of the recreation employees taking registrations that day, and Christian has amended the contract a bit to say that not only will we have a waiver signed by Hot Air Balloon, but we'll also get a county waiver as well, and we'll retain those waivers. So we'll make sure that everybody's eligible to go before they're taken up.
And of course, like all events, we'll double check and make sure we have a certificate of insurance for their insurance, as well as
Yep.
What we're covered for and everything else.
We'll have all that in place. You bet.
Any other questions?
I don't have any others.
I'll make the motion that we approve the contract with Hot Air Enterprises.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion
So
passes.
7 a.m. we'll get 3 waivers for you. You guys be the first 3 to go up, okay? You go. I got you. You're taking care of it.
We'll let you go
I got your
first, 'cause
ticket.
It's honorary for you,
I'll give this purchase order to Sandy, and you guys can sign it. Thanks.
Thank you, Frank.
Item number 4, consideration and possible approval of a memorandum of understanding with State Institutional Trust Lands Administration and Bureau of Land Management for the Wood Hill Trail System. Do we have anybody to speak to this? If not, I'll speak to it. Commissioners, this is what's commonly known as the Luke. What is it?
Jordan can probably speak to it.
Luke's Trail.
Or
It's the
Terry.
Luke's Trail up on Wood Hill. It doesn't include much of Luke's Trail. It actually includes several other trails. But in order to have that trail system up there, we need to have this memorandum of understanding with the BLM and SITLA to be able to use their parcels of land for those trail systems. We already have an understanding and a restroom facility up there. If you remember last year, they built that facility up there with a parking lot. This is just in addition, making the trails part of that system altogether.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Christian, just, in the sense that sometimes we might not understand all the same legal language, you didn't have any concerns with this MOU?
No, it doesn't require any kind of indemnity from anybody or any hold harmless type agreements. The only setback, I guess, is that, or any disadvantage to it is that Sittler retains the right to terminate this agreement at any time, or to pull any of its trails out of here.
I say and/or change routes.
But I think that's to be expected, and so they never grant a permanent easement for anything typically. So I think we take it and use it as long as we can.
Appreciate your comments. Thank you. I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. I'm excited about that because that allows us the opportunity to advertise our trails now, whereas before we couldn't advertise those trails because we didn't have the easements. Now the Trails Committee and trails people can start advertising that. Did you want to speak to that?
No, just let you know, we put a kiosk up over the weekend. There was Gary and quite a few volunteers, and so there's now a new kiosk at the trailhead, and within hopefully a few weeks we'll have the maps and everything ready to go.
This is going to be a great thing. People ride them already, and they've been advertised, just not properly. This will allow us the opportunity to use that as a tool to get people to come visit.
Well, I agree that the more awareness we can get on the trails, the more they'll get used.
Right.
And Price City will be marking within the city limits to show people where to go to get to that trailhead, so.
That's great. Thank you. Item number 5, consideration and possible approval of a cooperative agreement for dispatch services 2016-2017. Jennifer Stefanoff, Price Communications.
Hi, Jennifer.
I'm Jennifer Stefanoff. I'm just proposing the annual standard cooperative agreement between the counties and cities with the state for the dispatch services.
Jennifer, I didn't take time to pull last year's contract. What is the difference in the budgeted amount, if any?
There is. I don't know offhand, maybe 10,000? Not that.
This year, the state opted to increase, but they didn't hold the county and the
Right.
cities responsible for an increase. They paid for the increase in salary on their own
Right.
without increasing the county and cities portion.
Correct.
So,
I think it'd be appropriate for the record. The budget is set at $1,030,644. The breakouts in revenue are $504,040 from the state of Utah Public Safety. AP&P is $16,800. Carbon County is $307,984. Price City is $118,126. Helper is $29,833. Wellington is $22,717. East Carbon is $22,744. USU Eastern is $4,200, and the Carbon School District is $4,200.
Correct.
Any concerns at all, Christian? It looks the same to me.
Yeah, I think. I
I'll
don't
make
see
a
any
motion.
problems.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second that motion.
Thank
we
you.
have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Thanks, Jennifer. Item number 6, consideration and possible approval of an interlocal agreement between Carbon County and Emery County for road maintenance purposes. Commissioners, this is an agreement that we have on certain roads. For example, there are roads that connect, county roads that connect between us and Emery County, and instead of having our road plows and our construction crews stop at the county line and turn around, we've made some agreements that we will maintain some roads and they will maintain other roads. These are the roads that Carbon County would like to maintain. For the record, we could read those in: the Moreland Road, the Horse Canyon Road, West Mounds Reef Road, Trough Springs Ridge Road, Nuck Woodard Road, and Lower Miller Creek Road. Lower Miller Creek Road is one of those that our snow plows in the past have been going to the county line, turning around and coming back, and it's in a very inconvenient place to do so. So we've made some agreements. What changes in this, and instead of Emery County receiving the money for the maintenance on those roads through the BNC road funds, it would be Carbon County that receives those maintenance funds for the BNC road funds. So we do take on a little bit more maintenance, but we also receive the BNC road funds for those roads.
Commissioner Hopes, just to clarify, you may have said this, but Emery County is going to do maintenance on portions of Moreland Road?
Correct.
And then the other roads you mentioned, Little Horse Canyon, West Mounds, Trough Springs, Nuck Woodard, and Lower Miller Creek are the ones we're going to do within Emery County.
Thanks
So-
for the clarification.
Commissioner, you may, at this point, even comment on the Nutt Woodard Road and what has happened with the improvements there also.
Little less than a month ago, a couple weeks ago, we were up in Nuck Woodard. There was a conversation with the Forest Service that road was closed because it was impassable, and that there was still severe flooding because the vegetation hadn't grown back. We went and had a field trip with the Forest Service and Emery County and other interested parties, the ATV groups. We drove up the road. The road was in pretty good shape. There was only one spot that maybe needed a little bit of work, and a culvert that needed to be replaced. We asked the Forest Service that they replace that culvert and open the road, and they did go and open the road. They replaced the culvert and opened the road, and they also allowed us to go in and grade that road so that it's passable for vehicles.
You know, and I think that was an outstanding effort that you made and the citizens involved in that, because there was some debate on whether that would become a permanently closed road, and it's, in my opinion, a shame to give up those public accesses. So thank you very much for taking that on.
Not a problem. I'm not sure the fight on that is done.
Yeah.
They're still looking at, through the Forest Service road management, at looking at closing that road, so we're gonna have to watch that one closely. But for now, it's opened as it should be. So, thank you. So we have an interlocal agreement on the table.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I was just going to comment that maybe I don't have the most updated version, but mine doesn't talk about Lower Miller Creek Road.
That was a late change that was that I received today, and let me give you one that has that.
Okay.
So you can look at that.
Yeah, Lower Miller.
But I imagine that the language is similar to the others that you mentioned. It was.
It is the same. If you look, we've added section E to paragraph 2, and then at the end of paragraph 3 says Lower Miller Creek Road will additionally be maintained as necessary to preserve the asphalt pavement. So that's the extent of the changes.
Okay. Commissioner Potter, did you make a motion?
I did.
I'll second the motion to approve.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Motion passes. Item number 7, discussion and possible approval of a substitute language concerning Schofield lands transfer as contained in the Public Lands Initiative. Commissioners, as you know, when they rolled out the Public Lands Initiative to Congress, they substituted the original language that was in the Schofield bill, or in the original Bishop's bill, and they substituted the Hatch's language instead of Bishop's language. Hatch's language has some problems or some concerns, especially for the landowners and the county. It puts a lot of responsibility on the county and the landowners. So if it's okay, there's been some discussion that we would like to change from the Hatch language and put the Bishop language back in the bill. There are some changes we'd like to make to that as well, but I think before we do any changes in the Bishop's language, we need to meet with Congressman Bishop's staff, and also I would like to form a committee of 5 members from the Balota subdivision that would be able to review the language in behalf of the Balota subdivision and help us review that language and make sure that everything is to their liking as well. If we're going to get what we want, let's make sure it's good for everybody and not just the county, but also those residents that live in Balota.
And I think that that's very appropriate when that change happened in the shortness of time to react to that. It's very prudent, as we were told, that that language could be amended, removed, or substituted in any way. A couple of the things, Commissioner Hopes, that I think that we should talk about in regards to changes. Of course, we'll have more discussion on this, but the term of life estate, I think, should be considered as one of those items that we look at removing. I don't know of anybody that's familiar with life estates that would ever opt for that particular option. I mean, it's pointless. It eventually just does turn that land over. And so I don't know that that's really important. Some of our timing in there might be of issue. And also in the items in regards to covenants and requirements, there's a couple of those items that have to be taken out of there so that the county and or residents are not responsibility for the replacement, design, maintenance, operations, or construction of the dam should it fail. So, you know, we do have quite a bit of work to do on that language, but it is far better, like you said, than the Hatch language, in my opinion, also.
I would agree. The only other thing, in the last paragraph of the Bishop's bill, it says that the claimant is a willing seller. If the claimant is a willing seller, the Secretary of the Interior may offer the claimant fair market value. I also believe we should pull that out, just for the fact that if there's a willing seller, they should be able to put it on the market and sell to anybody, and that keeps the property on the tax rolls and allows people to use that property. There are plenty of buyers, once we clear up all the titles, to be able to buy that would like to have some of those properties.
I was just gonna go ahead.
As we go forward, one of the other things that we need to do as we work with the committee from the subdivision is we need to start clearing up some of the titles. I know John Jones is here to speak to this, and I'm not sure if anyone else is here to speak to this, but as we move forward with our position as a county and trying to settle this below the subdivision, we need to start coming to an agreement with, as landowners up there, to clear up the titles. If we can make agreements on property boundaries and everybody's okay with that, it makes it easier to make clear titles with the federal government.
That's the next item, but.
Okay. We could probably go ahead and make a motion on this, of changing from the Hatch language to the Bishop language first, and then you can come up and speak to it, John.
So as an official statement for Carbon County, I mean, basically, we're participants in the PLI, and this is our official statement that we, as participants in the BLI currently, we show our support to the original language and not the last-minute change of them submitting the Hatch bill in place of the original Schofield language. And so I'd go ahead and make the motion that we request the injection of the original language so that we may work on making corrections and changes to that language versus the Hatch bill language.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. John, would you like to come to the mic and state your name and?
Just because we want to know
I'm
who
John
we are.
Jones. I want to thank you guys for the work you've done. I mean, the negotiation isn't easy. It's been going for a long time. And for you guys to step up to the bat and protect us in this bill, it's important. I believe it is a public lands issue, and this is a great opportunity to clear those titles and give those folks that own that land up around the lake peace and quiet, which is one of the major property rights that we pay for through taxation. I think it's important for the people to know that currently there's a little over $28,000 a year that comes into the county coffers in taxation from just below the line and below the subdivision. And I think it's important that we receive the same rights that the rest of the citizens do. So I really appreciate you guys going to bat for us. It shows that you support us and care. I'd like to help with that committee just a little bit, but I think to put together a committee, we need to have the blessing of the commission to have a voice and have an opportunity to hear the discussions and negotiations that take place on that area with the BOR as well. I think by doing so, it gives us the ability to move forward, and possibly the homeowners could help the county jump over some of the hurdles in even the Hatch bill now in case we fail with the PLI. I can't say enough about Rob Bishop and Jason Chaffetz and the work that they did and the promises that they've made and how they followed through for those folks up there on the hill. So I guess today I'd ask the commission to allow me to work with the homeowners. Not necessarily, I don't know what the homeowners, whether they'd even want me to represent them or not in this matter, but I would love to be a part of it. And I would like to approach the homeowners and give those guys the opportunity to pick some of the folks that would help with that committee and start working on their hurdles, some of the things such as the deed work and the surveys and stuff like that, to make sure that they're done properly long before the PLI goes through or doesn't go through and we revert back to the Hatch bill. I think it's also important for me at this time to thank the BOR. I mean, they have been a great party to work with. They brought great ideas to the table. Sometimes they're not always easy to agree with, but I think that they have rules and regulations that they have to live up to. And becoming a partner with the BOR would be important to the homeowners association or the homeowners that's up there as well. So I'd like to have the commission bless us with the opportunity to be a part of the negotiations with the BOR and the language in the bill, and to work through it with you to make sure that the hurdles that the county's looking at addressing in the future are taken care of, hopefully in advance of our opportunity to run that bill. If you guys would give us that blessing, I'd appreciate it.
Are you interested in helping to form up that committee?
I am.
In addition to that, to find those that would
I would love to
be willing to attend and help with this?
I would, and if the homeowners would agree, I would love to be a part of the negotiation all the way through. I've been a part in the past, and I think that there's great opportunity for us to resolve this in the near future by working together. I would also need information. I mean, for us to be successful, you guys have a slew of information, even that the BOR has shared with you. If we had access to that information so that the homeowners could have a better understanding of their plight and where they stand, I think it makes it easier for them to come to the table and negotiate at an even level. And it's better if we're an equal team, we'll prosper and we'll win. So if you guys will allow us to maybe utilize Sandy to gain information, to put the meetings together, we'll make sure that you guys are informed always of everything that we have and everything that we share.
And then we just be sure to, we need to start immediately on it. So
Right.
I guess the thing that I would ask, John, is that as quickly as we could to come up with a committee and let's start to look at language. And of course, the work that's already been done in the county over a lot of years here, that can be very quickly reviewed and everybody brought up to speed. So that's an easy request, but I would feel very comfortable and would like to have their input. I know there's 70, 80 properties up there that this affects, and maybe 5 is a representative of a very small portion, but I think that's where we start, and that many more heads would be very good in helping this.
Yeah, I would love to be part of that. There would be some information I'd need to make those contacts simpler. When I was a commissioner, we gained access to emails and phone numbers in previous meetings. If I could access that information so that I could contact the people who wanted to be contacted on the deed process, I could do it almost immediately. Also, if we could have access to the survey work that was done in the past up there. I know that there's been a great deal of work done already accomplished, and we could take those surveys into consideration and see what actually had to be done. Possibly I could work with the homeowners to make that one of our first hurdles to accomplish. So with you guys' help, we can be successful. Again, I really appreciate the work, Jake, you and Jay have done this last week, and especially Casey. I drove him nuts. So I appreciate him still taking my phone calls and coming to the table.
Well, John, we'd like to show appreciation towards you. You and I have a little history of having conversations, which is probably a little unprecedented for people in our positions, and so I'd like to express gratitude for all the help that you've been to us and supporting us and helping us do a good job.
Thank you.
I think that it might be even more appropriate to try and funnel everything through Doris, since she's over there in that wing of the building with planning and zoning and building and GIS and everybody, and probably would have more ready access to a lot of those details. Like Commissioner Potter mentioned, time is of the essence. The ball's behind anyway, we need to get right on this and need to get something organized, some kind of official statement, not a statement, but a committee put together. We'll be involving everybody up there, but there needs to be people up there that are kind of the spokespeople for the group, and if they choose you as a representative or somebody else, then I think it would be appropriate for you to be involved because of your history with the project.
I would be involved as a landowner as well, Jake, and I appreciate that. The one reason why I kind of picked Sandy out is because she's got some history with other committees, such as the folks that run the dam and stuff like that. So there's other negotiations that's taken place. This actually started back in 1945 with the Conservancy District, and some of that information may come into play, and she would have access to that with permission from that committee. So I think it's important that we look at land ownership from the beginning of time, and it would simplify the fact to get the history that already exists in those files if it's possible. And so that was the reason why I had mentioned Sandy. I could work with everybody in the county. I think we're kind of family, and I appreciate the opportunity. So thank you. That's a great suggestion.
But I think through both sides, and there's none of that isn't public record, so it should be accessible. I mean, those plats, the surveying things that are done. I was just looking at the original patent done back in 1915 in those records. So I mean, there's some history that is there.
I've had this conversation with some of you, and I'll keep it short, but that's really part of the problem with having this property reissued to the current landowners through the Department of Interior is the fact that that land has already been patented. And Christian could probably lay on this better than I can with his legal background, but there is no laws in Congress. Congress has never given the ability for the Department of Interior to repatent land. So this land has gone back into holdings of the federal government according to the BOR statements. And therefore, there's no path to get it back other than purchasing it. I think Rob Bishop's bill is a great opportunity. It already stands. And if we can ride that bill through, even though we have the opportunity to ride that bill through, I think we should address the concerns of the BOR, keep those guys as a partner. There's no reason we shouldn't think safety first and work as a group to make sure that their fears are addressed in this process. So I hope to keep everybody as a partner. Thank you guys for your time. If you'll give us permission to put that together and a right to be a voice and hear those negotiations and stuff. Without that, it's hard to build a positive atmosphere among the homeowners and get people that's willing to step up and work. But if they think they're really part of the cause, they'll be here.
And
So-
not only with the property lines, descriptions, corner points, and everything else, but even the language that we're wanting to work on in the Bishop bill, or if that were to fail in the Hatch bill, we'd like this committee to have a voice in what that language says as well.
I agree. Oftentimes, we don't think of the part in some of those bills. I've ran a few bills in Congress and worked in the Senate a little bit. Had the opportunity and the blessing from our elected officials to be a part of some of that stuff. But really, the language in the bill doesn't concern me as much as the definitions to the language. Oftentimes, we get tied up in what the language says. For instance, we're going to be responsible to rebuild the dam. But in the definitions, we could lead that same statement to say that we wouldn't be responsible to the homeowners in the event that we had to rebuild the dam. And we could hold Carbon County and the Department of Interior or the BOR harmless in that statement. So really, referring back to the language, sometimes the BOR puts that language in. I really would request that we talk about that language with the BOR, as well as our elected officials, and find out the true meaning and where it came from. I'll bet some of that was addressed through closed doors in that action. But being able to address the definition, possibly gaining support to protect the county as well in that area, I don't think that's a bad idea, and I don't know any reason why a homeowner up there with property rights would be in fear of that. We all understand where we're at. But I would love to be a part of every step of the way that you guys can allow me to have the opportunity. With that, if you would give me permission to be a part and a voice, I'll move forward and approach those homeowners, and we'll have a committee as soon as possible.
Thank you. Can we do that by motion then, Christian, or do we need to prepare some kind of a document?
No,
on this
you
one, or-
can simply do that by motion if you'd like. I just think it should be, we probably need some clarification as to the fact or the purpose as to what the committee is being formed for. In other words, if the committee is formed by you, their primary job should be to inform you and provide you with information. If they want to, I have a little worry about a committee that goes up and speaks to the BOR and says, this is what we think is most important. And then the commission goes up and says, well, we think this is more important. In other words, I guess my concern is the committee needs to understand it's not speaking on behalf of the county. It's advising you, and if it does decide to make its own representations to the BOR, it'll need to do that
form.
or at least advise the BOR that we're not speaking on behalf of the county, we're speaking as homeowners. This is what's important to us. The commissioners may not agree with us completely, but this is what's important to us. In other words, I don't think you should vest your authority in the committee.
Right.
And I don't think that's what's being asked, but I think that should be clarified so that there's no doubt that you're not, by granting this motion, that you're not giving away any of your authority. You're simply asking this committee to help and to inform you and be helpful where it can.
So let me try and make a motion to that effect, that we authorize John Jones to move forward in forming a committee that could be instrumental in advising the commission on the Schofield lands transfer going forward. And then also as part of that we would come up with some documentation as far as defining a little bit better those roles and what we could help with, what we could have them help us with.
That's great. I think the most important thing, if I can speak to that.
Come up to the mic, John, so we get it recorded.
I hate mics. I sound like Donald Duck. I think the most important part to that is the information side of it. I'm not looking for us to go negotiate. If I let anybody believe that was wrong. I want to be a partner with the county. We have no power without you. We're a part of you. We expect you guys to protect our rights just like anybody else's. And what I would see coming from the committee is an opportunity to be involved in the discussions so we have a greater understanding of our plight. The actions that's being taken by the BOR strictly affects those homeowners. It affects the whole county budget-wise, but it really just affects those homeowners personally. And so we're not looking to negotiate without your advice and your legal backing. We're not looking for that. We're looking for you to negotiate on our behalf. We would like the opportunity to hear the negotiation, be a part of the discussion, be able to voice our opinion, but stand behind you guys. Realistically, the benefit of this committee is to overcome the obstacles that stand in our way in the Hatch bill. That would be the true benefit. And one other great thing about having a small committee that's controlled by the homeowners, it would be our responsibility to answer to the homeowners. That takes a whole lot of pressure off of you guys for us to go back and say, this is what's come out of the committee. You guys authorized us to go work on this as the homeowners. we've worked with your commission and they've done the best job that they can, and this is what we have. And so we can negotiate back and forth without the environment that we've had in the past. Thank you.
Thanks, John.
I think that motion would basically do that and provide those opportunities.
I think so too.
Commissioner Potter, would you, I don't know that it's needed, but maybe add advisory in front of the committee? So it's an advisory committee by definition?
And that would be fine.
All right, with that single word change, I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
Thank you.
John, as you talk with those homeowners, I would like you to share the language of both bills. The BOR is very interested in getting a resolution. In our last meeting with them, they have even contemplated running the hatch bill. So we need to light a fire under them and let them know that there's some urgency to resolve not just the language, but also start resolving the property boundaries, whether that's they each take 4 corner stakes and go out and with their neighbor and say, yep, this is the property boundary, or whatever they do. We need to start coming to some resolutions so that the BOR can sign off on what's happening. They want to see a resolution. This is a dark cloud looming over them. So if you can share some of those concerns with them, it might help to get more people involved. Thanks. Item number 9, consideration and possible approval of First Amendment to Carbon County Metro Drug Task Force interlocal agreement. I'm not sure who was, Christian, or you?
I can talk to this, and Sheriff can probably talk to this. This is just a small change to the interlocal agreement, and it simply states that we are not, or that the Drug Task Force is not intended to be a separate interlocal entity, but is to simply, we're just to have an agreement that will fund this Drug Task Force, which is comprised of, I believe, officers from several jurisdictions. So the intent, I think if it is its own entity, then that creates a lot more work and a lot more responsibility for it. Whereas if it's just a task force, almost a committee, as it were, a joint committee, then we can avoid some of those headaches. I don't know if Sheriff wants to say a little more about that.
Pretty well covered everything, I would say.
Did you say it was made up of 1 deputy and 1 police officer and each fire chief?
Each police chief.
Each police chief.
In an advisory position at the board.
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second that motion.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Item number 10, consideration and possible approval of contracts with local governmental entities and Carbon Canal Company for NRCS Emergency Watershed Protection EWP projects. For those that know what's or don't know that what's happening with this is the Emergency Watershed Protection Funds in the county, Wellington. I believe we spoke to this a little bit last week. Wellington, Helper, and Carbon Canal Company each received some funding, and the NRCS asked us to be the host agency. This is just creating our agreements with each of those agencies and the canal company. Christian, do you want to speak to this?
Sure. Basically, Carbon County is required to be the sponsoring agency, which means it's responsible to make payment to contractors as the work proceeds. By the documents, is required to provide the matching funds, despite the fact that the work itself is not happening on Carbon County land, or not owned by, it's not land that's in the county, and it's not land owned by Carbon County. Well, I guess that's not true. I guess the Carbon Canal part is. But primarily it's benefiting Helper City, Wellington City, and the Carbon Canal Company. So since those entities are the ones receiving the benefit of the work, and we're simply acting as sponsors, this agreement provides that they are on the hook to perform the contract. They are the ones who need to step into Carbon County's shoes, as it were, and fulfill all the requirements of the contract. If NRCS should fail to come through with reimbursement to the county, those entities have to provide the reimbursement themselves. They are going to procure the design and the labor and the materials for the project, but I've written in here that Carbon County can stop the project if they breach the NRCS funding documents or the EWP documents. They're to give us updates on what happens. They're to hold Carbon County harmless and indemnify Carbon County with respect to any claims that may arise out of this work. They also waive all their claims against Carbon County for the work. Carbon County does not guarantee or warranty the work, and they're providing assurances that they have granted access to the real property upon which the work is being performed. So if this looks okay, Commissioners, I'd like to begin to circulate it to Carbon Canal Company and the cities so that they can look at it and see if they have any concerns. But this protects us as a sponsoring entity.
And Commissioner Hopes, probably, even though we've already made the motion that we would do, excuse me, be the sponsor and dollar amounts that we've talked about in the past, just because we have a different audience today, let's talk just briefly about what those three projects are. The cost obviously is 25% funding, but also that there is no charge on the county to admit, or by the county to the cities and to the canal to administer this. But I think it'd be wise to talk about what these projects are and their amounts at this point, just briefly, just for review and for the record.
Okay, the first one would be the Carbon Canal Company. Their diversion structure in the Price River right at the golf course, during the floods in 2014, I want to say it was 2014, received some damage because of the major flooding that was happening. So what has happened is they're going to rebuild that entire structure, and most of these agreements were because of the flooding that happened in 2014. The funding for the Carbon Canal Company is $3,515,751. The way the EWP funding works is they have this total amount allotted to the project. If their engineering comes back and their bids come back lower than that, say 2 million, 2.5 million, then the portion that they will pay their match on is 2.5 million. They only pay the match on what they're going to use. So if the canal company comes in under the bid, and they can build it for less than what they estimated, these numbers are just estimated costs by the NRCS on what it would cost to rebuild those. They have some engineers that kind of give rough estimates of the project. So this is their rough estimate of what they think it would cost to rebuild the entire structure. So that $3.5 million is that amount. The Carbon Canal Company obviously hopes to build it. They're looking at 2.1 to 2.5 million is what they're shooting for. The Helper City, they received $687,600. Their work is for stabilization of flood channels and also to create some debris basins up along the upper part of Helper, where you have a lot of those major wash drainages come in. There was an old railroad grade up there. They're using that railroad grade as kind of a dike and slowing the water down. There'll still be channels through there, but it will allow the water to back up and flow out at a slower rate, so it doesn't come through town as quickly. And that's what that project, that's the main portion of the Helper project. And then the Wellington project, this is the one that's a little disheartening. In that flood event, there were multiple homes, around 15 to 18 homes, I can't remember the exact number today, but that were affected, that all had water in their homes and were devastated pretty heavily. And the amount that the NRCS funded them was only $30,000 of the several $100,000 that they were asking for. And the project that they allocated the money to was to go in and pull debris out of the channel, which is a minor part of what needs to happen out there. The reason why they were funded at a lower level is there's some language when we talk about lawyers. When it got sent back to Washington, D.C., they saw that there was a dike, and they interpreted that dike as a levee, and they don't build levees. And so they didn't fund it for that reason. We're still working on that. That one's still kind of an open book. Bronson Smart and the NRCS are still trying to get some money from Washington to do some more of that work. The county is, I'm having Daniel and Curtis look at some possible solutions that the county may undertake in fixing that, cleaning out underneath the bridge, and that may be our only option to fix that, but that would be on the county to do that work if we get to that point.
Thanks for that update.
Any questions?
I was just going to comment that our 25% obligation is in part met by some of the projects that we currently had underway anyway, isn't it?
We don't, and Carbon County had multiple projects in the EWP, but Carbon County was another one of those that was unfunded. We don't have a project. We don't have any stake in this. Even though we're the host agency, we did not receive any funding. We're just being the host agency for those entities that did. So our 25% match doesn't come into play. We can put in, for example, Wellington, we can go out and do some of the work that would take portion of their match on their project if we went out and did some of that excavating to widen the channel like I was discussing.
So the match, I guess what I was getting at is, doesn't have to necessarily be just in dollars, but can be in effort and equipment and county
Correct.
time.
The match is either dollar amount or in-kind match. It can be soft match or hard match. Thanks.
Commissioners, on the procurement and administration of work, a small clarification, because my office will run most of this. When it says they'll follow NRCS guidelines, administratively, how I foresee this working, and I may be wrong, is those entities will put out the RFP for what needs to happen. Carbon County will advertise it, receive the bids, turn it over to them to review, and we award it if those contracts do have to be in Carbon County's name. We award it, they oversee the work, we run the reimbursements, and they come through. If it doesn't work in that way, and they actually, Wellington City or Helper City open the bids and whatever, the wording's in there, and I did check that it's in there that they'll follow the NRCS guidelines, but if...
Well, the way it reads now is not the way you're describing it.
Okay.
So if that's how it's going to happen, I need to make some modifications to this, because it contemplates they would do the procurement and that they would...
Well, in that meeting, we discussed with, it wasn't Bronson, it was...
Tony Bills.
Tony Bills. Do you want to explain, because we asked some very specific questions, will you answer those? Because he told us that it could happen either way, if I remember right.
In our meeting a few days ago with Tony Bills and all the cities, we came up with the solution that each one of the cities were responsible for following all those procurement rules applicable. So they will do all the advertisement and everything else, but we will have the opportunity to oversee those to make sure they're meeting all those guidelines. And then as they do those, they pay the bills, they do everything. Myself and Whitney are the representatives basically for the contract. So they on a, I can't remember exactly off the top of my head, monthly or bi-monthly. They have to turn in all that documentation to us. We'll compile it into one document and forward it on to the NRCS.
And they'll reimburse us, and we'll divvy the money out as it comes back in.
Exactly.
As long as they realize it's federal money, and that a lot of the smaller entities have in their procurement code that they can give, preference to local vendors for, if they're within a certain percentage, and they can't on this. type
It's
of
spelled
contract.
out, and each one of them have received a copy of the document proportional to their projects. So they should.
And we did talk about it
Understand
at
that.
length, and Tony was very specific when he covered those to make sure that that was well known by all involved.
Because we had issues on our last DWP project.
Okay. Any further questions?
Then I think the way I've written it is works, because it does say that each entity will select and procure the engineering, design, and technical professionals, and will select and procure construction labor and materials.
Right.
And they will follow NRCS guidelines, which are the federal guidelines. So I think we're okay then.
Okay.
I think we're all right if that's how they're gonna do it.
The only thing that I was wondering is, no, you changed it. I thought in one of them that it had said that the Carbon County will pay for the work to be done, and then they will reimburse us. But
I didn't see.
in the Wellington one, I think it was in the Carbon Canal one.
So it does say, let's see, so on number 4, this is how it reads. It says, in any of the contracts, it would read like this. It says, in light of the fact that Carbon County has undertaken this sponsorship action on behalf of Carbon Canal Company, and that Carbon Canal Company will be the primary beneficiary of all work performed under this grant, Carbon Canal agrees that it shall be responsible for payment of all work performed on the canal, and agrees to reimburse Carbon County for all amounts it expends in paying for work. And then it goes on to say Carbon Canal agrees it will provide the 25% matching funds required to be provided by the county, or will reimburse Carbon County for its provision of matching funds. Let's see. Number 1 maybe is where you're thinking, Casey. On paragraph 1, it says, the agreement provides that Carbon County will pay for all work done on the canal, and that NRCS will periodically reimburse Carbon County for funds that it expends on work on the canal.
That's what I saw.
So what's your thought on that? So we are going to write the bill, though, right? We're going to pay the bill. Is that not correct? And
Well,
then
for the-
NRCS reimburses us?
Possibly for the Canal Company project.
Is that not the case on all of them? That we write out the check and then?
I think
No,
it
in
was the
reimburse?
cities that were going to write out the checks for their
In-
specific projects, and then we were going to reimburse them. The Canal Company, I don't know if they have funding to do that. We may end up having to do that for the Canal Company and then receive reimbursement.
So the cities will write out checks and NRCS will directly reimburse them? Is that how it's
No,
going?
so
No, they will reimburse us.
And we'll
and we
reimburse,
will
we'll send
just
that on to the
pass through.
city?
Yes,
Okay.
we'll be the pass-through.
Well, then we need to fix that in the city contracts then.
Okay.
Good catch.
my understanding was it was supposed to be the same for the canal.
Canal
Maybe we need
Company?
to follow up and see if, because I was told by them they were supposed to be getting a grant loan to cover their 25%. So
Okay.
we might need to follow up and see if that's the case, or if we're going to have to handle that for them.
The biggest question comes is the lag of time. Do they have the money to foot,
Do
you
they-
know,
do they have the money in the bank
$500,000 project
to
bill, and they're going to have to pay that because they're going to have to pay the contractors, submit it to the NRCS. The NRCS is going to sit on it for a month or two before they actually get the funds coming back in. And do they have the funds to cash flow that kind of project?
Can they
Not saying
float it for 4 months
I want to
before they
either.
get reimbursed? Yeah.
And that's really, it's a cash flow issue, and it's not whether or not they can or have the match, it's can they cash flow it?
Justin, will you contact
I don't wanna
the
have to
Canal
either.
Company and verify with them that they can cash flow, or if they need the county to cash flow, and it will be reimbursed to us.
Yeah, I will follow up with them.
Okay.
So as far as the memorandums, then we may want to table this one till the next meeting, clarify these things.
Well, tell me what our timeline is on, in other words, is we've finalized our grant, all our grant documents with NRCS, right?
Correct.
Are they waiting for, are the cities simply waiting to get these contracts? Is that?
No, they're moving forward with their projects. Justin, am I correct in saying this? They're moving forward with their engineering and their projects.
So the urgency is for us to not be left on the hook.
Before money is spent, we need to have these in place.
For our own sake.
Correct.
I got you. Okay.
And to go with that too, so there is a timeline on the EWP money, and we were originally told like 220 days, but that 220 days started from when NRCS got the money. So we are down to 94 days, 6 hours, and 24 minutes before that money expires. So it's very expedient that we get moving forward on these projects.
Well, but they're already moving forward.
Yeah.
But
So-
so our expediency is to not be left on the hook
Holding the
for
bag.
this.
So we could go ahead and make the motion subject to that change at this point in time.
I think so.
I think we
That way
could
it
too.
would be held up.
Yeah, I'd go ahead and make a motion that we approve the contracts subject to those payment changes, and who's going to be the paying authority and reimbursing authority, as discussed and as received from Justin and worked out with Christian for proper language.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Motion to adjourn?
We are adjourned.
I like that.
Thanks, everybody.